Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers in Korea and around the world, it's 10 a.m. on Friday, April 18th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned into our ongoing coverage of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster and the ongoing search and rescue efforts. The desperate search for passengers continues on this Friday, 2 full days after the ferry started to sink. Overnight, the number of people confirmed dead rose to 25. 271 people, including a great many high school students, remain unaccounted for. 179 people were rescued on Wednesday, but unfortunately, no new survivors have been found since the day the ferry sank. Now, let's go over live to our Kwon Soa, who is standing by at the Paengmok harbour on Jindo Island, where search and rescue operations are continuing. Soa, fill us in on the current situation there.
Mark, rescuers are continuing to search for missing people, and also discussions are continuing on how to pull up the Sewol-ho ferry. Now, three cranes had arrived earlier at the Paengmok harbor, and one is still yet to arrive. The latest development is that in addition to the 4 cranes, Hyundai Samho Heavy Industries' own floating dock will also be included in the process. Experts say that'll be more effective, and families are, however, still worried that pulling up the ship might lead to killing possible survivors.
Yes, that certainly is a great worry. And speaking of the families, some of them are there at that harbour. How are they coping with this dreadful situation?
Right, some families are here to watch over the situation, to watch over how the rescue process is proceeding. But that makes the atmosphere very, very tense here. I heard people crying out, "Bring back my son and bring back my daughter." And also, "We will be waiting for you here until you come." And I also saw some of them praying by the shore. Some people, meanwhile, are expressing anger at times about the slow search and recovery process.
Yeah, we can see the video there of the devastated families, and the progress has also got a lot to do with the weather conditions. We can see there the weather looks rather gloomy. How are the weather conditions right now?
Well, the weather has been very harsh during the last 2 days, but right now it is also still pretty foggy and it's drizzling a little bit. However, it is said that today's conditions will be improving as the skies clear off and the rain stops as the day progresses. Now, as for the temperature, currently it's around 13 degrees Celsius, but the underwater temperature is at around 9 degrees. Well, that's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more in our later newscast. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Soa, and of course efforts must still be made regardless of how desperate the situation appears to be, and it's good to see that search and rescue teams are still working so tirelessly around the clock to find more survivors. Now, the families of the missing continue to wait and pray at an auditorium in Jindo for any news about their loved ones. The numbers haven't changed over the last 5 or 6 hours, so we continue to hope for the best for the families at this truly excruciating time. We're now going to connect live to our Lian, who's at the auditorium in the coastal city there. Lian, any developments there?
Mark, it's actually pretty hectic down here at the Jindo Auditorium. Officials from the Korea Coast Guard arrived here around 30 minutes ago and announced that air will be injected into the ferry starting at 10 a.m. So according to their announcement, air should now be injected as we speak. The parents of the victims have grown even more emotional over the announcement, already extremely frustrated with the rescue process, which have failed to rescue any victims alive. They're shouting here, asking for the specific details of the ongoing ongoing process. The Coast Guard officials are using the monitors here that shows the live video footage of the site of accident to provide the details of what they know so far. As you would expect, the relatives of the victims here are extremely emotional, and they have been taking the mic at the podium one by one to plead for a more thorough search process. About 200 family members of the victims are here and also over at the Paengmok port.
Yes, our thoughts are with the family members at this very terrible time. One can only imagine how difficult it must be for them, not knowing the fate of their loved ones. How are the relatives being looked after there by the services, and are they receiving any form of counselling?
Well, there is a special care center set up here at the gym where nurses and medical personnel are taking care of people and trying to help them get through this truly traumatic moment. The past 2 nights have been extremely hard for these families of the victims. They've been under an overwhelming amount of stress. Some even fainted yesterday as they heard news about the rising death toll. Now, earlier this morning, I saw several laying down while getting IV injections. There are about 500 volunteers on site to help out at the relief center here, including those from civic groups like the Red Cross and various welfare foundations. They are supplying families with relief supplies like food, raincoats, and blankets as well. Mark?
Well, we can hear the very highly emotional atmosphere there, Leanne. Thank you very much for your report. That was our Leanne reporting from the Jindo Indoor Auditorium, where many of the family members, very upset family members of the 271 missing are gathered, and they're waiting for any news of their loved ones. And now with details of any further details, we're joined by Kim Ji-yeon at the news centre, who's been following this tragic disaster for us for the last couple of days. The confirmed death toll, unfortunately, rose overnight. Ji-yeon, give us the latest numbers.
You're right, Mark. The total confirmed death toll has risen to 25. The identities of 10 more bodies have been confirmed, and 8 were high school students. That puts the death toll for students from Danwon High School at 12 so far. Now, of the 16 bodies recovered since overnight 6 p.m. Thursday, 10 are female, 6 are male. The Coast Guard discovered the bodies in the open ocean and assumed they floated out of the ship as the tide shifted. Most of the deceased were wearing life jackets, and one woman who is in her 60s was even wearing a bicycle helmet.
And do we know any more about what was happening inside the vessel at the time it started sinking?
Well, it has been revealed that a control center based in Jindo Island sent a warning to the ship telling it to evacuate all passengers immediately. This came 4 minutes after the first distress signal was sent out by the Sewol-ho ferry at around 8:55 a.m. Wednesday. But no passenger in the ferry tried to escape the vessel for more than an hour. This is because an announcement sent by the crew members of the vessel telling passengers to stay put, that it was too dangerous to move around. Students were seen wearing life jackets but were just waiting inside the ship. This likely contributed to a much higher death toll. But the investigation into what happened is still ongoing, with Lee Jun-seok, the captain of the ferry, being the focal point right now. It's been looked into whether he and around 10 of his crew members abandoned ship. Back to you, Mark.
Yes, we've seen the video of him cowering in front of the cameras, answering police questions. And I think we can all take that as a valuable lesson. But what should captains of passenger vessels do in times like this? And what should we do as passengers?
Well, for starters, Captain Lee and his crew should not abandon the ship without making sure the passengers were safely off. This is clearly laid out in a manual in the Sewol-ho ferry and the steps to take for crew members in case of an emergency. In the manual, it states that the captain and the crew members should have an announcement to the passengers explaining what was happening to the vessel and what they should do to escape to safety. And then the crew members should have stayed put to make sure that everyone on board is on life vessels before leaving themselves. But as you can see, not one of these regulations was followed by the captain and the crew members of the Sewol-ho ferry on that fateful day.
Yes, just one life vessel was deployed when the ferry went down. And we hear that the authorities have raided the headquarters of the ferry company.
That's right, Mike. Local authorities have conducted a seize and search at around midnight on Friday on the offices of the Cheongjin Marine Company in charge of the Sewol-ho ferry. The Joint Investigative Headquarters received computer files concerning the ferry, and with the information retrieved, the authorities are to look closely into why there was an abrupt change in the ferry's direction. This is being looked at the main cause as to why the ship went down.
And there's also been some texts that were sent out in recent hours that are taking extremely cruel advantage of this awful tragedy.
Well, with the nation's focus on the rescue efforts, the government is warning about a text scam, and it's falsely indicating that it's a message from Yonhap News Agency, and it includes a link to a video of the rescue operations at the site where the ferry is located. Smartphone users who click on this link, a malicious app is installed that will leak their personal information embedded in the device. It then induces the users to install a fake banking app that will then extract financial information of the users. It is not yet sure how many are affected by this scam at the moment, but the government is trying to prevent further spread of this text and plans to distribute a vaccine to the users. Mark?
Yeah, it's truly unbelievable that people can take advantage of such a horrible event like this. Now, the ferry disaster is being extensively covered, as I'm sure everyone knows, by the foreign media as well. What are some of the responses to this tragedy from foreign countries?
Well, U.S. President Barack Obama sent condolences to Korea and especially to the victims of the ferry disaster and says he will pay tribute during a visit to the country next week. President Obama adds that the United States has an unwavering commitment to its ally in good times and bad, and says U.S. Navy personnel are at the site to help with the rescue operation. Also, the head of the British Foreign Office, William Hague, sent his condolences to the Korean people, especially to the families that are waiting for news of their missing loved ones. Hague said British government will provide support in any way it can. Also, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi also echoed those sentiments in similar comments. Back to you, Mark.
Yes, the victims and the missing in everyone's hearts around the world. Thank you, Jion, for that report. Now, for an expert's opinion on what could have caused the Sewol-ho ferry to sink, we are joined on the line by Professor Baek Jong-gi. He's Professor of Ship and Offshore Structural Mechanics at Busan National University. Good morning to you, Professor.
Morning, Mike.
There are a wide variety of scenarios being put forward to explain what could have caused this tragedy. What do you think happened to cause the ferry to tilt and then capsize so quickly?
Right. Actually, it is very important to identify possible causes of the accident, but I think that it is still time to concentrate on rescue operations. But on the other hand, we are curious how this tragedy was taking place. Direct sinking was caused by capsizing. That is what we have already seen and found out. Then now question is how and why the vessel was capsized. There must be several the possible scenarios to explain the cause of capsizing. I think that two possible scenarios are relevant, namely unintended accidental flooding and insufficient stability performance. You have been getting some new information. Actually, yesterday, it seems that the vessel was made in terms of some structural change by adding some accommodation rooms on the upper deck. I believe that any effects of this structural change has been evaluated by authorities such as the classification societies, and there must be no problem However, one thing is that this kind of we have to be cautioned that this kind of structural change can cause some decrease of stability performance. In this situation, capsizing can be taking place in any emergent situation. For example, we are talking about the sudden change of route. So that might be one possible cause of the capsizing. Then on the other hand, as far as unintended accidental flooding, this can be caused by structural damage with some holes. This damage can be, of course, caused by various different types of the reasons. For example, you can say grounding, collision, explosion, or age-related damages such as corrosion. The most probable cause among these four items is, I think, the grounding. The vessel may proceed on grounding with some forwarding speed. Therefore, the bottom damage can be made. So the accidental flooding can be taking place, leading to capsizing. This is whole picture of this scenario. Then now we may make some ranking of the possible scenarios. Well, I think that the most probable scenario, the causing this sinking, is the unintended accidental flooding caused by actually through holes. But still, the insufficient stability performance is definitely another possibility.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor, for your insights this morning. That was Professor Baek Jom-gi, Professor of Ship and Offshore Structural Mechanics at Busan National University. Now, we're going to connect live to our Connie Kim. She joins us from the Korea University Ansan Hospital, which is where the largest number of patients are being treated among the 10 hospitals that are caring for survivors and those who unfortunately passed away. Connie, we're getting some information that the ambulance has arrived, carrying a dead body, has arrived there at the hospital. Hi, Mark.
I'm standing at the funeral hall at the Korea University Ansan Hospital, which is about a 10-minute walking distance from Tanon High School. More than 320 students from that school was on board the vessel that has been capsized 2 days ago. Now, the atmosphere here is absolutely devastating, with the outcries of relatives of the 4 deceased passengers filling the funeral hall. Just about 5 minutes ago, a high school student, Hwang Min-woo, has just arrived. We've been hearing cries of the parents not believing that her son has come back dead from what could have been an enjoyable field trip. And also, about an hour ago, one of the deceased, Chang Jun-young, has also arrived as well. Now, in the hospital, names of the lost ones are shouted out here and there as the family members grieve for their lost sons and daughters. Parents are crying out loud. They're hugging each other, with some saying they didn't even have a chance to speak to their children before the vessel went down. And although the Tanon High School is now temporarily closed until next week, many students sobbing in school uniforms and those injured from the accident are in the funeral hall to say their last goodbyes to their friends. With endless stream of friends and families paying their respect at the hospital, Tanon High School is reviewing whether to set up an incense altar within the school.
Now, Connie, a number of the students who managed to escape from the sinking ferry with their lives are also receiving treatment at the hospital. How are they doing?
Well, most of the 71 survivors receiving medical treatment here are high school students. They have been undergoing checkups, getting x-rays and blood tests. Now, I've spotted some students with fractured bones and bruises, nothing overly seriously physically at least, but they're all in a state of shock, as you'd expect, with some students refusing or unable to eat. They were asking whether their classmates have been found yet. Hospital officials note that the mental trauma of these patients is really concerning, especially because they are teenagers. They say they'll mainly focus on mental therapy to help them recover from their shock. Back to you.
Thank you, Connie. That was Arirang News' Connie Kim reporting there from the Korea University Ansan Hospital, where many of the injured are being treated. President Park Geun-hye paid a visit on Thursday to the search site and the nearby gymnasium where many families are still hoping and waiting on news of their loved ones. Paul Lee reports on the impromptu and at times very tense meeting as parents express their anger at the government response.
President Park Geun-hye arrived at the site of the search and rescue operation off the coast of Jindo on Thursday afternoon. The visit comes the day after the Sewol ferry sank 20 kilometers off Paengmok Island. Upon her arrival at the nearby port, Korea's head of state inspected the area and was briefed on the ongoing rescue efforts carried out by the military and Coast Guard. She said she was very concerned that the rescue efforts were slow, even though so many personnel and equipment were being mobilized. Park told officials that every minute was critical and that the safety of the rescue workers was also a priority. Park later visited the indoor gymnasium where the families of those missing are gathered, taking questions and offering words of support.
가장 지금 힘들고 순간순간이 고통스럽고 애가 타고 미칠 것 같은 이분들한테 먼저 알려드려야 된다 이거죠. 모든 것을 자세하게 좀 알려드리시고 또 현장에서도 아주 모든 각오를 다 하고 그렇게 또 얘기를 했지만 또 원인 규명도 확실하게 할 거고 거기에 대해서 거기에 대해서 엄벌에 처할 겁니다 반드시.
Many angry family members shouted and screamed as Park spoke, demanding answers and venting their frustration over the lack of progress to save their loved ones. Some even attempted to rush the front of the informal debriefing. Others expressed doubt that the government was doing its best to handle the situation and complained of the lack of updates.
이분들에게 신뢰를 받을 수 있도록 앞으로 좀 하여튼 마지막 한 분까지 구조될 수 있도록 최선을 다하겠습니다.
President Park promised the families that they would be immediately informed about any developments, as well as the next steps in the rescue operation, including the arrival of 3 industrial cranes on Friday, which will be used to try and lift the ship. She told the families that while bad weather conditions are hampering the search, they should not lose hope. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
Turning now to details about how the ill-fated ferry itself, for any clues on the cause of the sinking. The Sewol-ho ferry is one of Korea's biggest passenger vessels. Some experts suggest the ferry's recent expansion may have weakened its dynamic stability and could have been a factor in its capsizing, Kim Min-ji reports.
Built in Japan in 1994, the Sewol ferry is one of the biggest liners in Korea. Changhae Marine became the owner of the vessel in October 2012 and began operations in Korea in March last year. The vessel's normal travel route was from the western port city of Incheon to the resort island of Jeju, which takes about 13 hours. It is 146 meters long, 22 meters wide, and weighs over 6,800 tons. It has a capacity of 921 passengers, 180 vehicles, and 152 20-foot containers. Comprised of 5 floors, the engine room is located on the first floor, while the second floor is a cargo compartment. The remaining floors are the cabins, while the 5th floor is usually reserved for VIPs. Among the 475 that were on board, more than 350 passengers were designated to the 4th floor, with the majority believed to be students from Tanwon High School. There were about 80 passengers on the 3rd floor, which is also equipped with a restaurant, information desk, karaoke room, and convenience store. Fears have grown that many of those unaccounted for could be trapped inside their cabins or in other areas and have died. However, there is still hope that some will be found alive, which would be possible if they were using a giant air pocket to breathe, as the tip of the ship is still above the surface. Meanwhile, in a separate development, Seoul's YTN reports that the vessel only had the capacity to carry 804 people in Japan, but was expanded when it came to Korea. If we compare the two, there is a difference in the height of the liner. The deck has been transformed into cabins, allowing it to carry 117 more passengers, while the mass of the vessel also increased by 239 tons. The expansion of the ship is now also being looked into as another possible cause for the accident. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather update in Jindo area. Rain, strong winds, high tides rough seas hindered the rescue operation yesterday, and about 20 millimeters of more rain have fallen overnight in that area and still, but lingering showers will go away as the day goes on, and temperatures will be about 2 degrees higher than yesterday with PM sunshine. Winds have died down a little bit compared to yesterday, and morning winds should subside a bit in the afternoon, and waves are expected to reach 1.5 meters high at the most, with water temperatures ranging between 11 to 13 degrees Celsius. And tides are the facts, and this is when the weakest tidal current occurred today, and flow velocity decreases during these indicated time. So overall, weather-wise, it's looking slightly better than yesterday in Jindo area. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back with more updates afternoon.
And those are the updates we have for you at this hour. The Korea Today team will be back in about 30 minutes as we continue our comprehensive coverage of the ongoing search and rescue efforts on the ill-fated Sewol-ho ferry. You can also stay up to date with the latest on our website, which can be found at arirang.co.kr.